Hi, mums. We're back with the Natural Dog Mum podcast, and today we're having a conversation with Dr. Kate Millhouse. She is a holistic vet with a practice based in Canberra, and she's got all sorts of interesting information for you about the different modalities available, different therapies that she offers for a range of different medical issues, as well as preventative care. And we're really excited to talk to her. So welcome and thank you.
Thank you, Sherry, for having me.
Absolute pleasure. Now, to get things started, I'm curious to know a little bit more about what led you to study veterinary medicine and what inspired you to move into the natural medicine field.
Well, like most vets, I've always loved animals, even from a very little girl. No one else in the family had any desire to be around animals except for me. So obviously, I've always just wanted to be a veterinarian. But when I was in high school, I had this science teacher from years 8 to 10. His name was Chris Easton. If you ever remembered an old music band called ZZ Top, and he had this orange beard and this black Akubra hat that was sort of falling apart, and he looked like he should have been riding a Harley Davidson. And he was just this amazing science teacher, and so he never actually answered any of our questions with an actual answer. He always answered back with another question. So he kept us thinking all the time, like a scientist should. What if, why, how? And makes us always think about things. And he also taught us that if you see an anomaly in a data from a research topic, don't just dismiss it as that it's not possible. You've got to ask questions why, and that's how we discover new things and what can actually happen in the world. So even now, there's, a scientist, I'm going to correct my name on it, but is it Pinky Pie? He's from the ANU, but only recently he discovered that the universe is expanding exponentially. And up till then, we always thought that the universe was just expanding at a regular rate. But he found an anomaly in his data and he did a research into it and found out, that there was actually more going on. So if we go into the world, very blindly and just say, yes, we're going to believe every single other piece of research that's ever come out before us and not actually keep questioning and answering and asking questions, then we're not going to discover anything new. We've got all these things with medicine, like called idiopathic, idiopathic epilepsy. Yes, animal seizures for a reason, but we've got to find out, we don't know exactly. So we call it idiopathic. So we don't know yet. We need to find out more. So there's still more that we need to know what's going on. But when I went to university, I did feel like we got spoon-fed a lot of information. It's a lot to take in, a lot to learn. So you go out with the basic knowledge of what everybody sort of gets taught. I think also going back to high school, I also had this a friend who had chronic fatigue, and her parents thought, didn't find any more answers for her with medicine. She was in a wheelchair, and she wasn't. But, she had doctors telling them that she was just lazy, and this girl got, 20 out of 20 for 6 subjects for year 12, she's very intelligent, she shouldn't have been in a wheelchair by year 7. So they took her around to lots of different therapies, and it sort of opened my eyes a little bit to the different, therapies out there. But then when I finished and graduated, I had, the other vet saying to me that, chiropractic for horses, what ridiculous load of nonsense. If the horse's back was out, the horse shouldn't be working. So, you kind of have this sort of feeling that there's all a load of nonsense by the time you finish university. And then I had a client come in who said, would homeopathy help this case? And I was like, that's not. How could it? There's nothing exists with homeopathy. Anyway, she did come back in a couple of weeks later, or even a couple of months later, and showed me the case. That was a skin case. And I was like, that's better. That should have got better that way. So that's when I realised and went, well, actually, I haven't learned about this, and I actually have no idea what I'm actually talking about. So I should learn about it, practice it, and then I can then poo-poo it if it doesn't actually work. So I actually found a course in England at that time that was trained by doctors at a homeopathic hospital. So it wasn't exactly lay people that were teaching it. It was actually done by medical trained people. And so I've got my little bottle of placebo pills, and I've got my other little figures and started experimenting. Yeah, husbands actually make really good guinea pigs. So he got experimented on quite a lot. He had cellulitis once. So that was really interesting because I slipped a placebo in every now and again, and he could tell when it was working. And he also had surgery, a very painful surgery procedure on his lip done. And again, the pain afterwards, we was doing homeopathics for him and it was working. And then I'd slip a placebo in and he could tell me when it wasn't working anymore. Interestingly enough, husband's really good fun to test on. So that's when I decided that, yes, there is something in this, and I could actually see things happening. And from there, there's just more courses. There was acupuncture, and so I did a very Western-based course in UK, again taught by a vet and a doctor. But it was a bit Western-based. It was very much this nerve runs close to this point, so therefore it should do, X, Y, and Z. So by the time I got back to Australia, there was another course being run. By the I can't remember which one it was now from the IVIS, International Veterinary Acupuncture Society. So there's two. I've been helping someone else out from the Chi University, the Chi training course recently. So I did the IVIS course. I then continued to finish off my homeopathy course. Then I think there's more courses come up by this time. Barbara Frazier has started doing the College of Integrative Veterinary Therapies online course. So anyway, I did a herbal course through them, and then later on another nutrition course, and now I'm starting to do more nutrition courses. So the more you get into it, the more courses and the more therapies that are out there, and the more things that you see happen with the animals, and the response that you can get from them, it's absolutely phenomenal. So it opens up a whole new world of different ways that you can actually treat and give therapy to animals.
Absolutely. I'm curious, you mentioned that one of the early cases that piqued your interest was a skin case. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
It was about 25 years ago, so I'm not going to remember the exact details.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, it was. It'd been like it for years. I know the case had been like it for years. I can't remember the exact details, but I remember that the skin was quite a mess. I just did not feel that stage the homeopathy would have helped it. And it was a remarkable change in the case, definitely. Just using the homeopathy is what the owner said. So I sort of went, well, yep, let's try it. I've certainly had, loads of other cases that I've used homeopathy with. Everything from very physical cases through to, chronic rhinitis where it was a pseudomonas sort of nasal infection, which, they spent years trying to get right. They double dosed the antibiotics, they did cultures, they did prolonged course of antibiotics, they did a triple course of antibiotics. They did everything right according to the textbooks, but this cat's nose was not getting better. It would have this green nasal discharge. It used to hang to the floor, 50 times a day. And I gave a homeopathic remedy, which was called K-Big, and it's meant to be for green, ropey nasal discharge. And it actually did absolutely nothing whatsoever. And often with homeopathy, you only get one chance. If the clients don't think that it did anything, they're not going to come back again. But this one did, thankfully. And so then we went back into the mental side of the case where apparently the cat got cat flu, the daughter got glandular fever. The cat used to sleep on the daughter's bed and was very close to the daughter. And then the daughter went into hospital and with glandular fever, and the cat couldn't be managed, so she put it into the vet clinic to be managed. Cat and daughter came back home, slept on the same bed together every night, and ever since then. But the cat had never got over that separation from the daughter. So I treated it for a remedy called Nat-Mer, which is a bond with one-on-one. It's sodium chloride. It's basically just common salt with a very unique just one-on-one bond. And it's all about that separation of that one-on-one bond. And I actually remember one of my exam questions was, what is not a feature of Nat-Mer? And the answer was a green ropey nasal discharge. But I used the Nat-Mer more for the mental side, and that cat just responded better than anything else. She said then she got down to only giving the periods once every about 2 or 3 days, and she said it responded better than any antibiotic. And we'll have just to keep it under bay using homeopathic remedies. So you can get some really good, amazing physical cases, but you can also get some real great improvement with the mental cases too.
I imagine. Interesting stuff. I understand what you mean about once you open the door and start doing a deep dive, you just want to keep going and going and going. I don't have the vet science degree, but I've just found since I opened my first book on herbs, since I started playing around with herbal remedies, you do one course, then oh, there's another one over here, and then there's this one. I think I'm only up to nutrition course number 2, but I've already got plans for at least a couple more. You just want to keep learning more and more. It's fascinating stuff.
Yeah, it's amazing how far back it all dates too. You know, you got your first veterinary textbooks were actually done on veterinary acupuncture. That was done something like 700, 900 BC. So, you know, what's been around for a long, long time, and the amount of herbs that, you know, we use and where the medicine has come from. And there's so much data out there now of the whole foods or the whole plant that is actually useful compared to just that extract that we take out and we use as a supplement or as a medication or as a drug. I've been collecting a few old veterinary textbooks, and my oldest one is 1814, which is for horses. It is actually interesting because they were starting to discover things that the dosages were obviously different for people to horses. You know, arsenic wasn't used for people, but it was actually quite effective for horses for different things. Obviously, we don't use the arsenic anymore. But yeah, talking about the herbs, talking about the plants, where they came from, what quality they are as well, was really interesting when you start reading this book. Yeah, and I've even got a few old medicine bottles now that I'm starting to collect as well, which, you know, we've got opium and cannabis and heroin. Very interesting things there. Strychnine and all sorts of wonderful things. But and obviously medicine has come a long way. We can actually tailor our herbs a lot better than what we're using. And, you know, you've got a whole loads of chemicals that are actually in plants that actually act in synergy together. And then you've got formulas that have been around for, you know, thousands of years with the Chinese medicine. You know, you put these different plants together that actually all have an impact and act in synergy together. It's amazing medicine.
Interesting stuff. So you're also a rare breed of vet in that you do talk about fresh whole feeding as opposed to conventional diets, shall we say?
Yeah, definitely. You know, we're the only profession that actually recommends a dry processed food as being benefit over fresh food feeding. Every other, medical practitioner of some kind out there, especially for the human industry, recommends fresh whole food, and yet we're doing this commercial dry processed food. You've got one, it's a very unnatural source of food for animals to start with, full of carbohydrates and sugars, which is an inflammatory sort of process going on in the body. You've got the Maillard reaction going on as well, which is the heating of proteins and sugars together, and that actually browns food. So it tastes yummy. You know, we all prefer hot chips compared to, a boiled potato. I like that brown type of composition on our food. But again, it's obviously carcinogenic. You've got your activated glycation end products going on there. So, you know, there's so much more that is actually causing disease and health issues. And then we take some processed food, which is, you know, fairly cheap and economical for them to produce because it's full of grain or another form of carbohydrate of some kind. And then they bake it, process it. They put some vitamins and minerals in, whether it is from a natural source or not, to make it theoretically balanced to what we call AFCO or 30F or NRC standards. But, you know, there's no flavonoids in there. There's no carotenoids in there. Okay, you might have some vitamin E in there as an antioxidant, but, you know, how much? Vitamin C, dogs actually do produce, or in cats, produce enough vitamin C, and actually it's an essential requirement as far as a vitamin or mineral goes for animals compared to that of people. But, you know, there's still some benefits of having vitamin C in helping to rejuvenate the glutathione and, you know, as an antioxidant in the body. Even though it might not be essential requirements, there's benefits of it, having some of these natural things put back into diets. But yeah, you know, we can probably talk all day long about diets because it's such a huge thing. But having this sort of dry, dehydrated type of food that's leaving the body in a permanent dehydrated state, the dental disease, just every disease possible, you know, can certainly lead somehow to nutrition in the body. Yeah, I think it causes more diseases than it actually treats by all means. The other problem that we do have with natural feeding is we're time poor. A lot of us are time poor. We want something easy and convenient to feed our pets. And what happens is I provide a really great balanced recipe. You can have everything in there. It's going to have all your organics, it's going to have your vegetables, it's going to have your nuts and seeds, it's going to have your omega-6, omega-3 balance right. You're going to have your calcium and your phosphorus balance right in there. and all the other supplements else that we can put in. But after a while, we're a bit time poor and we start leaving things off. We didn't get to shops, we didn't get that ingredient. Oh, he doesn't like that ingredient. We'll just leave that out. Oh, that was a bit hard to get. I just come back in a year later and we've gone from a really, really perfect diet. It's probably gone to the worst diet I can possibly feed an animal because so it is a problem with nutrition, but we can do the best for animals, but we can also do the worst for animals as well by doing something that is completely unbalanced for them at the same time. So yeah, we always have to keep sort of monitoring and watching what goes on. Yeah, so we kept that group going basically to try to keep our search engine going, I guess, for holistic vets so people can help find us a little bit easier. Yeah, we're not active on group as such. We tend to communicate a little bit more through different sort of private groups at this stage. And we also have our conference once a year as well. But we did keep that site going so that people can actually help find us and yeah, a quick reference for people when they need to get to someone. So it's skin issues definitely are far much better with the natural therapies than the conventional medicines. A lot of conventional medicines, they're there to suppress the body's reaction, but the body's trying to react for a reason. So if you just suppress it, you're actually not solving the problem. You're not sorting the problem out from within. So yeah, going back to skin cases, a lot of animals do have skin issues, and we're basically just suppressing it with a shampoo, which is basically just looking at treating bacteria or yeast on the skin. We look at treating with anti-itch medications, but anti-itch medication is just stopping the itch. It's not stopping the whole inflammatory process that's actually going on. And that's what we need to look from within. So I use a lot of diet for my skin cases. I look a lot at getting the gut flora right to start with, and commercial feeding, the high carbohydrates changes the gut flora around completely. We need to really nourish that gut flora. Because gut flora activates the lymph nodes in your gut called your Peyer's patches. Your Peyer's patches set off signals to control allergies, autoimmune diseases, behaviour. There's so much there that they can actually be linked to these days. So I do a lot with changing the gut flora around, and then we then look at using the herbs and the supplements, from there to try and specifically manage the individual reaction that they actually have. So many animals after a few years can come off the herbs, and they go really well once we change the immune system around. Yeah, they're one cases that they actually do absolutely fantastic by just doing a few simple things with them. The arthritis cases, so much at the moment we're doing with acupuncture for pain relief. Acupuncture is fantastic. It's not just for pain relief. It can actually regulate anything in the body, pretty much anything where the body can be stimulated. So the only times that you can't probably use acupuncture is if your tissue is no longer present, you can't stimulate it to work again. So if you've got diabetes and you have destroyed all of your beta islet cells in your pancreas, you can't stimulate them again. They no longer exist. So that has to be managed other ways. But if anything else in the body can be regulated, speed of the gut motility can be regulated with acupuncture. Kidney cases, they respond beautifully to acupuncture. We're not going to cure the kidney disease, but the hypertension through the kidneys and the blood flow through the kidneys and the renal perfusion can be markedly changed around using acupuncture. So we're not just using it for pain relief there. So a lot of my kidney failure patients actually improve dramatically and live longer, better appetite, running around. I remember one little case recently, probably stage 4 renal failure, about to be euthanized at the vets. So we started the acupuncture. I do a lot with probiotics for these guys because probiotics can actually utilise nitrogen as an energy source in the gut. So you can actually reduce your creatinine levels by actually probiotics in the body. And then I did herbs and some things with it. But 4 months later, he's at the dog park and he's lapping some of the younger dogs. He's literally running rings around them. He still, unfortunately, still did die of renal failure, but, they knew it was coming. They had every day that they had with him, a good day for months. Other cats, go on 18 months later after going to euthanasia. Some of the improvement that you can get with, renal failure, skin cases, there's other ways to manage, antibiotics other than just your drugs sort of things. What other things that I'm actually using a lot at the moment? I don't know, doing dietary management for urinary tract, crystals and stones in dogs. Yeah, I think it's unlimited potential basically what you can use these therapies for. That's right. Vaccinations is one really big one. I do a lot of what we call titer testing, which is a blood test to prove antibody levels. So they don't need vaccinating as regularly as what they're saying. Certainly, especially for your dogs, the distemper hepatitis parvo is very easily tested, the antibody levels for. And if they have antibodies against the disease, they're not going to need any more vaccinations. So if they get exposed to the disease, then they will produce more antibodies and they won't show signs of the disease. But we can actually test those levels. The chemical side, unfortunately, we can't test for, and chemicals are still requiring it because it's not 100% effective. Just reducing the amount of drugs that are going into the system. What we have, unfortunately, tick paralysis is probably the one drug where I would say that prevention is certainly much better off than actually risking death and risking treatment. But apart from that, there's a lot of other things we can do for testing wise to actually prove their levels. I'll probably Heartworm too, especially in Queensland. The other places, we can minimise what drugs are going into the system. So when I was working as a regular vet and I had any dog that was 16 years of age that was elderly but not being popped up with medications, and every cat over 20, again, elderly but not being popped up with medications. I used to ask the owners, done, that's what you sound healthy. And the two answers was one, embarrassment of I've never taken my dog to the vet, not even for a vaccination, or I've just done the puppy vaccinations and then that was it. So I'm still recommending that we still do cover for diseases like parvo, but then we can actually then test, when and where they need that vaccination, rather than just doing it on a routine basis. And then the other answer was, I just feed them a bit of this, a bit of that, and that's when it came back to having their natural diet. Still see you there, but try and see if you can do more minimising the drugs that they actually do need, instead of just giving a bulk lot of, NextGuard Spectra, which does, your testosterone, your heartworming, and your ticks. You can just do NextGuard and then minimise the heartworm prevention in the city you need it for, or you can actually test for wormings rather than actually just treating it. They actually don't need it. My dogs do eat poo from time to time out. Occasionally there is a rabbit poo or a duck poo or a kangaroo poo they'll run and grab a little bit of. I just recently tested the fecal testing on my own dogs, and they're still negative for intestinal worms 5 years later without needing intestinal worming. So it just goes to show you that there is actually other ways that we can do things rather than actually just giving them drugs all the time. Sure. All right. Thanks, Sherry.